the moment to do that. First, Polycarpia Gaspar-Zunka was a facilitator, social services, multicultural education. She was born in December of 1965, and she died May 2nd, 2019. Danya Johnson, administrative assistant, school, South Olive Elementary, born August 1968, passed away June 18, 2019. And Jocelyn Thomas, a teacher, secondary chemistry, Wellington High School. She was born October 23, 1958. She died May 3rd, 2019. If we could have a moment to recognize the loss of these employees and think about their families. Thank you very much. This time I ask the board clerk to please read off the items that have been pulled from the consent agenda.
CI1, ELR1, FMPA2, and FMPF1.
Are there any board members who wish to pull any other items? We need a motion to approve the consent agenda as modified. Motion by Mrs. Whitfield, seconded by Ms. Brill. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. So that takes us to new business. The first item, Mr. Superintendent, is B2.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. B2, I recommend the board approve the advertisements of the FY20 tentative district summary budget and the appropriate tax notices in accordance with the Florida Statute 200.065.
Motion by Mrs. Whitfield, seconded by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item, BRD 1. BRD 1 is a board item. Let me get there. I recommend the board choose its Florida School Boards Association Legislative Committee representative and alternate for the July 2019 through June 2020 term per Florida School Board Association bylaws. Motion by Mrs. Whitfield, seconded by Mrs. Andrews. Discussion? We have to pick, so discussion? Does somebody want to? Mrs. Andrews, are you currently the legislative person? And you would like to stay there? You'd like to stay? And Ms. Brill, you were the backup? All right, so can we have a motion to, motion by Ms. Whitfield, second by Mr. Shaw. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mrs. Andrews and Ms. Brill. Next item, Mr. Superintendent, CI1.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. CI1, I recommend the board approve the contract with Florida Training Services, Inc. for the pre-apprentice programs at Riviera Beach Prep, North Tech, and West Tech effective July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020.
A motion by Mrs. Andrews, second by Dr. Robinson. Any discussion? Dr. Robinson.
Yep, thank you. I pulled this just to highlight. So Florida Training Services is the entity that, as stated in the agenda item, is running the pre-apprenticeship programs at Riviera Beach Prep as well as West Tech. The question I ask is, why aren't we doing a multi-year contract? We've worked with them for several years. I just had all my conversation about the need to make sure that we have these industry certification type programs in alternative ed. And the answer that I got back to my written question, I think, was a little bit rude and not, I think, intentionally sidestepping the intent of the question, which I think was known. And so, let me just pull it so the question was, we've seen good results with them for several years. Why don't we enter into a multi-year contract? The response was the annual contract with Florida Training Service provides us an opportunity to modify the contract from year to year. Well, guess what? We can modify all the other multi-year contracts we have too. And so, I'm just telling you, it really kind of disgusts me when I get those kind of answers. And so let's had a conversation. Why isn't it a multi-year? Is it that we just didn't think of it?
So I'll let Mr. Barch respond, but we do adjust that contract from year to year. There are different services. It changes from year to year and what we're working with in each of the communities. We can definitely look at entertaining next year to a multi-year contract if that fits. I don't know if there's other...
That's basically it. We did modify it every year since I've been here. Last year we added plumbing to West Tech, so that was an adjustment. This year, we added some additional forklift training. That was another adjustment. So it just, I think it's just better to go with a year-to-year contract, plus we don't know what our future community needs are and also what our budget will be in the future.
Mrs. Andrews?
Yes, I've worked with Florida Training Services, as you know, and Dr. Robinson. I am so thrilled with their work. How can we bring this back? The piece that you're talking about, Mr. Barch, that there should be some flexibility in that piece because, I mean, we don't ever want to lose them. They have really made a difference with moving West Tech to the next level. So how could we actually not do this tonight and go back and restructure that contract where if we're going to bring some more programs on, because that's my hope that we're going to be bringing more programs on, but still let them know that we're committed to them for the 3 years. I've been working with them for more than 3 years, and I'm very pleased with their work.
Yeah, so we can definitely go back and look, and we could do an amendment to a multi-year. I would like to move forward on it for tonight so that we can get these services started. And making I don't want to do this right now, only because I want to look at the financial issues and making sure there's no other things that we're missing in the contract. But I'd like to the board to support it for tonight and let us go back and see if we can amend it to a multi-year.
We like that. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw?
I think that is a good solution. Going back to a previous life, when adult education was one of my responsibilities in the district, we got to a point that we did multi-year contracts with the provision that with the approval of the superintendent, that changes could be made administratively in those if the impact was strictly adding or making a change in programs. So I think there is a way that you all might be able to do that, where to make it really simple and it didn't involve any cost issues. So I think that may be a solution.
Dr. Robinson?
So just to be clear, I think I'm going to offer an amendment to this, and so I would like to know through the superintendent how much time you think you would need to bring us back a multi-year contract?
Probably in August, possibly September, but probably August.
So I'd like to offer an amendment to this item to say that we recommend to approve this contract and that staff will come back with a multi-year contract on or before September 15th, 2019.
Dr. Robinson made the motion, was seconded by Mrs. Andrews. Mr. Superintendent, do you have any issue with us amending this item?
I do not have any issue with you amending this item.
All right, is there any further discussion?
I just think the amendment should say, if appropriate, not to mandate a multi-year contract, but just to make sure that it, if appropriate, should be as a part of that. Do you understand what I'm saying, the difference?
All right, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. With Mrs. McQuinn out of the room. Now on the main motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Whitfield was opposed, so 1-5-1. Now on the main motion, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Superintendent, COS 1.
Yes, sir. COS 1, I recommend the board approve the resolution to implement a student crime watch program.
Motion by Ms. Brill, seconded by Mrs. Andrews. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. ELR 1.
ELR 1, I recommend the board approve the new calendars for 2021 and 21-22 school years.
Motion by Mr. Shaw, seconded by Dr. Robinson. I pulled this one. It's no surprise to the superintendent. I told him earlier today that I would not support an August 10th start date. I offered several different alternatives at the board workshop. I'm kind of disappointed that the calendar committee came back with their recommendation to keep it the way it was. I was told at the calendar committee meeting, the calendar committee was told, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I was told that they were told that there was an extra 20,000 students who missed school in the years that we had school on Mondays and Tuesdays. I didn't believe that to be true, so I actually went down to Mark Howard's office, pulled the records. So on November 15, 2016, which was Monday of Thanksgiving week, there were 14,620 students out of school that day. The prior Monday of the week before Thanksgiving, there were, I'm sorry, that's Tuesday. The prior Tuesday was 6,600. So there's a difference of 7,920. On Monday of Thanksgiving week, there were 8,372 kids out that year. The following Monday, there were 10,748. So the most that we had out, in addition to the normal, is 7,920 children. So if the calendar committee was told that there were 20,000 children out on those years, that's not true, because I checked the stats from Mark Howard's office. Also, I was told by one of the administrators that by taking off Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, it would cost the district an additional $3 to $4 million. I didn't question that when I was sitting in that office, but when I went home, I was thinking, how can it cost $3 to $4 million more to trade the 2 days, Monday and Tuesday in August, with the Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, if we just move it 2 days to August 12th? I don't understand. So I'd like, Mr. Superintendent, if somebody would explain to me after the board members have a chance to ask their questions, why it would cost the district more money to take those 2 days off than the other 2 days? And also, if we are going to face this pay gap eventually, as one of the speakers said, then we need to figure out a way to fix it. Now, it seems to me that if we have a missed pay period, then instead of the pay periods being spread over 26 pay periods, that we spread them over 27 pay periods, so we give each employee a little less, but they pick up that check so that they're still getting paid for the prior year, even though, so they haven't started the new year, so we don't have this problem with the state statute that says we can't pay employees until they've worked that time. So let's just divide up the pay periods by one extra pay period, give them a little less with each pay period, so no employee would go without a paycheck during that gap period. So I don't understand why we can't do that, so I'd like somebody to explain that to me also. Ms. Brill?
Thank you. So I'm going to start off by saying that I'm embarrassed by the calendars that were brought forward tonight. I think it was very disingenuous to listen to the comments made by our constituents and to disregard them. If more direction was needed from the board, we should have been asked. I am of the belief that there is always a solution if people are committed to finding one. I don't see that happening here. I have heard and completely understand the concerns of our unions that some of their employees will lose a week's pay if we start a week later. I am sympathetic to them, and I truly believe that concern can be mitigated by a commitment to do so. I do not want a pay gap either, and we need to find a solution that avoids that. Certainly, some simple tweaks could have been made to find additional days that would enable a 1 week later start date, such as removing the first 2 or 3 days of Thanksgiving vacation. A full week is not necessary. I agree with Representative Polsky to eliminate the first 2 days of the Christmas break. I also previously expressed my desire for our schools to be closed on Veterans Day in honor of those who have served our country. If that would require a legislative change with regard to the number of paid holidays, then let's place that on our legislative agenda and let's go for it. Let's get that change made. I'll end my comments at that, just again reiterating my disappointment and state that I will not vote in favor of these calendars.
Sanders?
And you're hearing these same remarks that you heard a few weeks ago when we were here. I'm really concerned. Thank you, Vicki, for calling me and letting me know what had happened, but I was just shocked that none of the ideas that we had talked about came forward. And it was already a done deal by the time I got the information that it had already been decided. I go to Tallahassee. We have our legislators here that support us. We have a wonderful delegation that will work with us. I think we have to bring this back to the table in Tallahassee. So that's a big thing that I will work on as one of your legislative people sitting here. Ms. Brill is my backup. And we can work on this piece. But I like those ideas that Mr. Barbieri came up when we were sitting right here just a month ago. I like the idea of looking at Veterans Day. I still want to see how we can get that done. So I'm going to go to the legislature and work with Ms. Solnit and everybody that I can to get that cleaned up so we can get Veterans Day honored, because we should be honoring our veterans, the people who have served this country. And then when I think about our custodians and our bus drivers, I don't want them to lose money. But Mike Burke, you just received that big award. You can do it. You can do it. I mean, we are tops in the state and nation. I know you can go back and figure out how we don't have to have our bus drivers, our custodians do without money. So I'm putting that on you, because I know you can get that done. So there must be some way that you can get it done. But it was a slap in the face. I felt embarrassed that I had said the things that I wanted to happen, and it just came back as if no one heard me. So as I listen to you, I don't have to repeat it, Mrs. Brill or Mr. Barbieri. We need to get this done, and I think we can do better. And I said this a month ago. Shame on us. We should be able to do better than this for our children.
Ms. McQuinn?
Okay, I may become the most unpopular person in this room only because I haven't decided. I had decided a week ago to vote against this. And then after I talked to Miss Evans, I can't remember all I could think of was Leanne. Okay. And listening to the budgetary reasons, looking myself, and by the way, I can't find the 2021 calendar for Broward or Miami-Dade, but I did look at their calendars for this coming year, and they only start 2 days later than we start. They start Wednesday, whatever that Wednesday is, past our Monday. So I've been very torn tonight. Frankly, I tend to be a cheerleader type, so I want everybody to like me. I know that's not going to happen tonight, but now I listen to my board members. And I'm going to refer back to someone that only if you're very old are you going to remember, but Dr. Joe Orr was he was many positions, but finally chief academic officer. He supervised me when I was an area superintendent. But this is way back when I was a brand new assistant principal at Suncoast High School, and Dr. Orr, who visioned Suncoast and Dreyfus, were sitting in a meeting, and he said, well, we need to be able to do this particular thing, which today is commonplace. And I'm there saying, well, we can't do this because of this and this and this. And he said, Mr. Burke, no, he said, Barbara, I know all the reasons we can't do this. Now let's sit here and figure it out. And today it's common practice. So I'm going to finish listening to my colleagues. I've told a few parents on the phone and an email how very frustrated I am. I just don't think any of this has to do with student learning. Mr. Katz knows that while I almost always agree with him, I was a math teacher who gave exams 2 weeks after winter break, and I didn't have a problem one bit with that because I think it's conducive to retaining academic material. So the main thing I object to is the pay gap issue. So I don't know where I am right now, but I know wherever I am, I could ask that we look at taking just the 2021 calendar. In fact, I feel pretty strongly about that, and revisiting the following year calendar. Don't know where I am yet, but I figure it's just not going to be pretty anyway. So, thanks.
Ms. Whitfield? No, I'm sorry, Dr. Robinson's next, and Ms. Whitfield.
Thank you. So, okay, Mr. Burke, you're the one, because the answer is in the money. So, here we go. So, the only way that I'm going to vote to create a pay gap issue is if we just say that instead of dividing this little bit of pay by 27 instead of 26, that we just give them an extra check. So you need to calculate that for me, right? Because, it just doesn't make sense to me to take people who we just heard talk about, they can't buy shoes for their own children. We know the stories about how low paid some of our employees are, and they're the very ones who would suffer from a pay gap issue while we're concerned about children who are able to go to camp away, right? God bless them. More power to you, okay? But listen, I'm talking about the least of us, right? And so if we're going to put ourselves in this situation, I'm only going to vote for it if whatever the motion is includes another paycheck for the people who would miss a check if we postpone the day. Hold it, but I got more, Mr. Burke. So the other thing is, because the stereotypical child in District 7 doesn't get to go to sleepaway camp, stereotypically, painting with a broad brush, right? These are the kids, you know, that make me cry, right? Through no fault of their own. And so I don't want to decrease their opportunity to learn because some people get to go to sleepaway camp. I don't. And so the other condition I would need is for us to configure a way that the schools that I will call the real Title I schools, the real ones, you know, the ones that are like 80% free lunch and more, that we pay for them to have some preschool days for the children to come to school earlier and start, you know, get it going again after the summer slide. I mean, because this is supposed to be about children, right? I also believe that everything that I've heard from district staff, and as I said before, there's some people who have told me the best thing the prior superintendent did was to get a whole week off for Thanksgiving. That was like, ooh, great, right? And it seemed to be needed. Our people work hard, right? Especially in District 7. I don't know about any place else, but I can guarantee you they're working hard in District 7, right? And so I don't really want to take that break from them, but if it is decided to create a pay gap issue, I've got the two conditions, which comes down to money, that you would need to come up with the magic numbers and the board would need to approve. So.
Ms. Whitfield.
Thank you. So I've thought long and hard about my comments for tonight. This conversation physically hurts me. It really does. I can't imagine taking a paycheck away from a family that can't afford to eat. I spend my entire life working on hunger problems. There is so much hungry people in this community. There are children that are hungry right now. And you want me as a school board member to vote to take food away from them. I can't. I just can't. It makes me crazy. So if we can find a way to split up a paycheck, great. But we just had an unexpected $4 million added to our budget tonight for security that we did not get to plan for, that we did not get to think about. And to me, the idea of adding an extra couple of days to the beginning of the school year and asking people to come in and run practice routes, if we don't have that budgeted right now, I don't see how we are going to be able to pull that off. So, Mr. Burke, if you're a magic maker, go ahead and make that magic. I honestly want to see it happen. But when I look at the priorities of this school district, my priorities start with safety and security and taking care of our children's health and lives. It blows my mind that we are having this conversation. I want you to have a great summer. I want your children to go to sleepaway camp. I wish I had gone to sleepaway camp. I never got to. I wish I could have. I've just sent my daughter for the first time for 1 week away. It was huge for me. I was so excited to be able to do that for her, to be in that position. I want every kid in this district to have a summer camp that's beautiful and wonderful and comes back with wonderful memories. But if it has to come at the expense of children eating or families buying shoes for their children, I cannot do it. It is not possible for me to do it. I am so sorry. This is very upsetting to me. So we have to think about our number one priorities and what those are. And our number two priority after the safety and security of our children has to be the education of our children. And our teachers union has come back and said that we can't do this because the children's grades will go down. We just became an A school district. This is a huge thing. I'm so passionate about this. Our school district is amazing. These teachers work so hard, and you want to make their jobs harder by making them do tests after the holidays. To me, excuse me, I listen to you speak.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
I listen to you speak. There are just too many issues right now for me to be able to vote for this. So if we can figure out some of these, then I'd be happy to be able to make everyone in this room happy.
I am very similar to Mrs. McQuinn. I want to make people happy. I want to make you love your school system. But honestly, this is where I'm stuck right now. So if there is something that this staff can tell me that's going to fix these problems for me, I'm happy to. Otherwise, I'm not voting against this measure. I'm going to vote for the calendar as it is. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw.
Thank you. There was a time when I was in charge of the calendar committee, and we can sit here tonight like we did 10, 15, 20 years ago. There's not one decision we can make on the calendar that's going to make people happy, regardless of what we do. It was kind of interesting getting some of the emails that we received with all of the misinformation that was in a good number of the emails. The first one is the number of days that students have off during the summer doesn't change whether we start July 1st or September 1st. We still have the same number of days that students are in school, period. Mrs. McQuinn, I think, made the most valid comment at the last meeting because she said that her concern is that we are driven by testing for our calendar. And the truth of the matter is that is absolutely true, but that is a legislative issue. That has absolutely nothing to do with anybody in this room. There were comments in one email that said that because the school district, wherever this person was from, had to end school late, that they can't start their summer camps until late. But that seemed to be a reason to justify why we should start our school year at a different date to accommodate camps up north. Looking at some of the camps, because I did some research on it, parents can send their kids from 1 to 7 weeks to these camps. So there are options there. Summer in Florida is hot. And if we start on the 10th, if we start on the 12th or the 24th, it's going to be just as hot any one of those days, and that's not going to change. If we start on the 10th, there'll be people in this room who are going to be unhappy. We had one person suggest the 12th, and then we'll have a lot more people still that are unhappy because they want the 17th. And then we had one speaker that started out saying, let's start on the 12th, but then changed it to the 17th. My issue is very simple. We are not going to make anybody happy. We have now spent more time talking about a calendar in this school district than we have the important things of getting school open and moving forward with this. It's not an easy situation. I would love to see us be able to make these changes, but it's not going to be just something that works out that's going to make people happy. At the last meeting, I made a comment to all of the parents here that some of these parents who have kids that play baseball and soccer and lacrosse, who go to camps or to tournaments that start late in the summer towards the end of August, they've also asked us to start school later so that they're not missing school to go to these camps or to these tournaments. We've had all kinds of issues. As a principal, and I can remember at principals' meetings over the years, that we had the issue of absenteeism, not only of students, but absenteeism of employees before Thanksgiving was a real issue. And we were paying for substitutes and having to double up in classes and cover because of not having teachers because they couldn't get away out of town on Wednesday. When we had school that was in session closer to the winter, to Christmas, I can remember phone calls that we had around the district where parents called and they were really upset for two things. When we used to give the final exams after the winter break, parents were upset because when they were on vacation during the summer, their kid was sitting in the hotel room or someplace in the house having to study for final exams instead of doing the activities. We had parents who called and said, how dare you mess up my ski vacation to Vail because we're out here now and we've got to come back early because we can't stay as long as we want. So, that's not criticism of anybody. That's just the reality. And the reality for every single parent who's voiced this opinion and every other parent in this district, your job is to be a parent and you make decisions. And I don't think that it's fair for us to be sitting here trying to deal with real serious issues, and we're arguing over 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, because it's not going to make anybody happy. Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, let's start with the 12th. Tell me why, if there's no pay gap, why we can't move the start school date. Let's just start with the 12th. Why can't we move the school start date to the 12th and take the 2 days off at Thanksgiving to make up the difference? Somebody tell me why we can't do that.
Well, I just want to clear up a few things. We
No,
took
first,
it to- well, first we
with all
took
due
it-
respect, just answer that question, please.
According to the calendar committee, we took this back. We took 3 proposals, one of which was to start on the 12th of August. There was concerns about the loss of the 2 days for the high-needs schools. They felt that having they were taking it from the winter break, having the exams moved back was not academically sound. We had principals on the committee who did not feel that that was what's best for the students across the district, and they said absolutely not to that proposal. And like I said, we took it to the calendar committee. We didn't just take the old proposal. We took 3 different proposals. We also gave them the option of any creative solutions that they could come up with. And this was a team of very talented, educated people. We have a lot of competing interests in here. As I explained during the workshop, and I'm not going to go through all of them again, but there's a lot of competing interests. And as Mr. Katz said, we got a lot of direction from the board of where the lines in the sand were. We knew where all of them were, and there was no way to meet everybody's needs, to change the calendar in such a way to take away from the winter break. They remembered, the calendar committee remembered, we had winter break starting on the 23rd a couple of years ago. We had a flood of parents at the board meeting complaining about starting the 23rd, including our teachers who said, I can't get a flight. This is problematic for me. So we looked at the different proposals. We had 3 proposals for 2021. One was starting on the 12th, one was starting on the 17th. There was no viable option to do this, to gather all the competing interests and meet all of them and still do what we need to do for kids. We have to have at least 84 days in the first semester because of the state law. Miami-Dade can start later than we can because Miami-Dade goes on a year. They don't go by semester. So under the law, you can go by semester or you can go by the year. And there's a certain number of hours you have to have in one semester for high school kids to get credit. We go by the 67.5 because we have a lot of semester classes here. Miami-Dade does not. So they don't have exams. That's why their second semester can start in January, is because their kids are not having exams for a semester-long class. They have exams that time, for the middle of the year, but they can count for only what a regular quiz would count, about 5%. They can't count for anything more. So that's how Miami-Dade does it. We could look at something like that, but that is not just changing it on the calendar. That is revising the whole pupil progression plan, how we plan our academics, the choice programs, all of these other opportunities we provide kids. We could no longer provide them by the semester. We'd have to provide them by the year. So the issue about the 20,000 days, or 20,000 absences, I don't know where that came from. The information we had was on that Monday, let me pull this back, that on Monday the 21st in 2016, well, as we told them, there were approximately 11,000 absences. It was actually exactly 10,748. We told the committee that on the 22nd, there were approximately 15,000. It was 14,620. We know that some of those are duplicates, where the kid misses on Monday, they also miss on Tuesday. There are some kids who maybe only missed on Tuesday because they came back from vacation, were sick, and they came the first day but not the second. So the calendar committee really looked at, for each calendar we had, like I said, 3 options. And they had the opportunity to look at it. We looked at Veterans Day. We tried to figure out a way to make that work. We understand how important it was, but we looked at the 6 holidays that we do have. And there wasn't one that was less important. So we could put Veterans Day on, but we have to lose Martin Luther King's birthday, or we have to lose Labor Day or Memorial Day. And there wasn't an option there. Our only option, as we discussed, and as I spoke to board members when I called them about the calendar, was that the only fix is a legislative one that allows us to have some flexibility in how many paid holidays we provide our employees. And if you look at the statute with what paid holidays we're permitted to give, that needs to be addressed by the legislature as well, because some of them are quite honestly offensive. Jefferson Davis's birthday can be a legal holiday in the state of Florida, as can Confederate Memorial Day, and these are actually in the statute as allowable legal holidays. My favorite was Shrove Tuesday, which I found out is Mardi Gras. We can have that as a legal holiday, but we can only have 6. And so that was why Veterans Day, we just couldn't do it. We figured we'd be exchanging one problem for another. The principals and the unions, in order to move it back to the 17th, the only way to move it back that far is to move exams into January. Our principals, Mr. Alfonso served on our principal of the year, was our high school principal representative. He said he had polled the high school principal. There was not one single high school principal who thought this was a good idea. The teachers union did not think this was a good idea. So in order to move it, we can't just take a day off the front end and put it on the back, because then we run out of the 67 and a half hours that we're going to need, because we could get it even, we could make it a little tighter, but God forbid you have a hurricane, or God forbid we have, a lot of assemblies that have to be done for school safety, or the legislature comes in and says, now you're going to have to do this. We lose instructional minutes, and then our children who have gone to school that period of time are not going to get credit for a semester-long class, and then may not graduate. So we have to look at those competing interests as well.
Can I just back up? Can you tell me again why we can't take Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week and trade those and start on the 12th this year?
I'll let Mr.
Next year,
Burke
like
talk
we're
to
this
that
year?
one.
Can you tell me why?
Yes, well, let me just tell the implications. It really boils down to 2 things. Ms. Evans touched on part of it. The current proposed calendar contains 84 days in that first semester. To get that semester credit, the half semester credit, you have to have 67.5 hours of bona fide instruction. That translates to 81 days, but 81 days is too tight because we have requirements to do drills, we got assemblies, exams themselves before the break. So that's how we got to 84 is kind of the floor, 84 days. So your question, that alone does not stop your proposal, right? Because you can
Trade to 2.
trade to 2 days.
That's correct.
Mr. Shaw asked earlier this week the question about Thanksgiving. What's this issue with a potential financial impact or payroll issue? And I answered that question earlier today. It's attached to your agenda. But just real quick in summary, we've got when we added this holiday, the week of Thanksgiving, not a holiday. Basically, it's when we switched in 2017 to have the week of Thanksgiving off. As a result, we had added basically 2 non-contract days for our 12-month employees. So the 12-month employees are working fewer days than they did before that practice. It was, even though it's 3 days that we shut down, we eliminated what we had, a floating holiday or floating non-contract day for 12-month employees. So we've kind of given them a benefit. And this is, a lot of those 12-month employees are represented by bargaining groups. So to now kind of turn around and say, you know what, we've decided to do away with this practice of the Thanksgiving week, we're going to have to ask them either to resume working 2 more days or find another place in the calendar where they'll agree to say, look, okay, we'll trade Thanksgiving week for maybe give us a couple of days when the schools are shut down, like for the winter break or another time. But I can't really give a definitive answer because some of it's outside of our control. It's subject to bargaining. The worst case scenario would be the employees demand that they say, no, I'll work those days, but I want to get paid for it. And we'd have to maybe, if they took that potential stance at the bargaining table, the salaries of all those folks involved for 2 days with benefits is $2.1 million. And that's what I included in my written response. And the written response probably does a better job than what I just did here verbally, but those are the 2 constraints. And the big one really being that 84 days, because you don't want to shorten the first semester any more than it already is. So you're going to have to make a tough choice on encroach on another holiday or, break that the people are accustomed to.
Ms. McQuinn.
Is it possible? I mean, I've heard my peers, and that's what I wanted to do, because remember, we don't talk to each other outside of this forum. And I, again, I can't live with the pay gap issue. So my question is, if we approve the 2021 calendar, which nobody likes for so many reasons, could we amend that we relook at the 21-22 calendar? And so should I make that motion or whatever? I see people nodding.
Dr. Robinson?
So I don't know if this is what you meant, but I was thinking after the legislature changes and allows us to do more paid holidays, then to bring back that 21-22 calendar, right? Okay, yep.
So to clarify, we know we have this 19-20 school year, and then we have the 2021 before us tonight, along with the 21-22. It would give us time to work with the legislature for that third year out. And I know we've always liked a 3-year calendar, but folks, we changed that on a dime when it came to adding those Thanksgiving days. We changed just like that. And I pay close attention to the money. I don't think I saw there that it was costing us that much money to do that, but it was probably there. I probably just missed it. So I don't know how we, Robert's Rules of Order, go about this, but it's something I'd like for us to discuss, is going ahead with this current year and the following year, but revisiting after that, after we have time to work with legislators.
Well, we still have the motion on the table for the 2020-2021 calendar, so we can do that one first, and if you want to modify the 21-22 calendar, we can do that separately. Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, just a comment about what could happen in Tallahassee. This is an issue that is somewhat unique to South Florida. And to get an entire legislature to respond to a calendar issue like this that has essentially no impact in a good number of counties is going to be the challenge. But I think that's really where it is. Unfortunately, it's got to be dealt with there. I think to answer Mrs. McQuinn's question, as far as my perspective is, we can make that change whenever we want. So if it would help with trying to move this along, I move that we amend the calendar for it to be the 2021 year, and then direct staff to work for calendar options for 21-22.
So Mr. Shaw made a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Whitfield. So basically, we're modifying the superintendent's recommendation to split the two calendars, so we're voting on the 2020-21 calendar. Is there was that seconded by Ms. McQuinn? Pardon me? I'm sorry, Mr. Superintendent, are you okay with the amendment splitting this so we can?
Let staff respond to your comments before I make a decision on the system amendment.
There was an issue I wanted to respond to. It doesn't really have to do with splitting the agenda item, but just as far as what type of legislative help you may seek and what that really does to help the district. These payroll gap concerns are not going to be eliminated by adding more holidays. And if we add more holidays, there's a potential financial impact there as well. The payroll gap is a real challenge. And, Dr. Robinson asked about, how much this might cost if we just tried to somehow add an extra paycheck. We've got about 1,500 people potentially involved with the 2021 calendar if we moved it a full week. That would be at least 2.4 or more million. I need more time to figure that out, but it's over 2 million. And then you've got some legal constraints. Ms. Evans did a nice job on June 5th trying to lay out all the legal constraints that we face. We cannot pay people before services are rendered. So we can't just, even if we had the money, we just can't cut a check and say, we hope to see you back in a couple weeks. You could try to maybe add something on the prior year. But we are, and I'm going to spare the astronomy references and stuff this time, but I've looked ahead to 2044 because I figure that's a long enough window to cover my career. But in 2028, we face a pay gap again with our teachers potentially. And we went through that about 10 years ago, and it was a nightmare. So we are looking, there's not real magic, but we are looking at, we do biweekly pay, 26 paychecks. There are other counties that pay once a month, or they may pay bi-monthly, where you pay on the 1st and the 15th. And that would alleviate some of this, but that would also be subject to bargaining. And it's also subject to retooling our entire ERP PeopleSoft system. And we lived through some hard times in 2006 with that implementation. So I don't take those type of adjustments lightly, because we have 22,000 plus full-time employees on a variety of contracts and different lengths and all types of different provisions within those contracts that make our payroll really complex. So I'm not sure I'm helping here, but I just want to be clear that we're not going to solve this by going to Tallahassee and being able to say, okay, now we can get Veterans Day as another paid holiday. We're going to run into financial challenges that are very real, and we can look at maybe changing our whole payroll system, because looking ahead at 2028, we have other groups that could be impacted sooner. One of our speakers kind of referenced to that. I'm looking at the 2023 fiscal year. There are some 216-day calendars and others that could be impacted, but there may be creative ways to work through some of that. So we are looking further out, but the biggest fix might be a major change to how we pay people. And most private practice-owned businesses are on biweekly. That's why we went biweekly back in 2006. So there's a long list of pros and cons, and it's nothing we'd want to decide tonight on the fly without really digging into it more.
And I want to make sure, the collective bargaining agreements we have with our union specifies how they will be paid. So that is something we can make that change, but we also have to bargain that change. The district can't just decide we want 27 pays. We have to bargain those with those unions on almost, I think, all of our unions.
Okay, so let's get back to the discussion on the modification, which just splits so we can get back to just voting on the 2020 calendar and then the 2021 calendar. That's currently the amendment on the floor. So can we discuss just that amendment so that we can then get back to discussing the 2020, 2021 calendar? Mrs. McQuinn?
So but I do want to say that now to protect the pay gap, if I have to choose, I'm going to vote to approve this recommendation. So now I'm going to make everyone unhappy, because you know that I had a board question to send me the policy about the committee representation, which we didn't get today until 11 o'clock. And you can help me with this. I wasn't here then, but we have a school board policy that says in the spring of each year, the board shall be presented for review and adoption a school calendar for the subsequent school year. The proposed calendar shall be prepared by a committee appointed by the superintendent. And we have a great committee. I know how hard the committee works. I've been on it too, okay? So how does that fit? That we are voting now on 3 years out with this coming one and then 2 more. I don't like being boxed into the 2 years following this one.
General Counsel, are we violating the policy if we vote on the 2021, 2022 calendar this evening?
I think we've been by course of dealing, voting in advance on calendars. I don't think that this.
So because we violated the law in the past, we can violate the law tonight too? Is that what you're saying?
No, sir. No. I'm saying that this policy is extremely vague. It is very short. It is 2 sentences long, and I don't think there's anything in there saying that it's prohibited from doing advanced calendars.
Ms. Burrow.
Thank you. And, I'm at the point of feeling that, I know that the calendar committee explored a lot of the different options. I'm still not sure that, I really believe that if people want to find a way to resolve this, it can be done. And there are a lot of questions on the table about the cost, about the days, about the pay gap. I would request the superintendent withdraw this tonight, go back, speak to staff. It's not going to kill us to wait, but I really feel like there's, I was told by the superintendent that the board did not give any specific direction with regard to days that we're willing to sacrifice. Maybe we need to do that now to see if that would work. If we all agree to eliminate 2 days or 3 days off Thanksgiving, 2 days off of Christmas, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But to sit here and not make any progress getting anywhere tells me that we need to look further into this. So I would request withdrawal of this item.
Need a second on a motion to withdraw? We don't have,
Is there an amendment on the table?
Superintendent, that's right. Superintendent's got to withdraw. Are you withdrawing? No. Okay. So let's get back to
No, I
the,
will not be withdrawing right now.
thank you, Mr. Superintendent. So let's get back to the motion, the amendment that separates the two calendars so we can deal with one at a time. Is there any further discussion on amending the superintendent's so we can divide the two calendars so we can discuss them one at a time? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so now we're back to the main motion, which is approval of the 20. Yes, the vote went 6-1. So now we're back to, the motion now is that we have a motion to just look at first at the 2020 calendar year that starts August 2020. That's the calendar we're talking about. So,
Before we go there, let me go ahead and accept the amendment.
Yeah.
I'll accept the amendment to divide the calendar so you can vote on them separately, yes.
thank you very much. All right, so let me go back, if I may, because I'm the one that pulled this in the first place. Let me go back and ask again. Are the contracts with the unions already specify that they get those 2 days off as paid? Do we have that in the contracts at this time?
No, I would argue, though, it would be a past practice, is what under labor law there, and Julianne can speak to this, there is such a thing as past practice. If both parties have accepted that this is how business is going to be conducted, whether it's in the contract or not, we can't just change that on a dime without impact bargaining.
So the fact that for the last 25 years before that, we were not having those 2 days off is not past practice either?
No, sir. I would defer to our legal counsel on that, though.
All right. The other board members can chime in, but I'm not supporting this tonight. I believe there's a solution to this that can get us to the 12th, that start on August 12th, and I'm not supporting August 10th because there's got to be a solution. As Mrs. McQuinn said, Mr. Orr said, we know what all the problems are. Find the solution. There's got to be a solution to this, and I can't believe that you all can't figure out how we can get to the 12th of August rather than the 10th. We did it this year. I don't know why we can't do it the next year. So, other board members?
I say
The
call the
discussion.
question, let's vote.
Question's been called. All in favor of the 2020 calendar as proposed by the superintendent with an August 10th start date? This is the 2020, August 2020 calendar. All those in favor? Ms. McQuinn, Ms. Whitfield, Mr. Shaw, and Dr. Robinson. Opposed?
Oh, opposed now. Gotcha.
Opposed are Mrs. Andrews, Ms. Brill, and Barbieri. So the motion passes. Now we're on the 2021, August 21 school year. It starts August 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please. We're on the 2021, August 2021 calendar now. Discussion? Mrs.
No, I just
Quinn.
think it's not okay that someone in the audience threatened me, point his finger at me, say whatever it is he said. That's unacceptable. We are all here to do what is best for kids as we best see it.
School police, would you go find that person and get the name and do what police do?
I think he had on a black shirt. It'll be on camera. That's unacceptable.
I'm sorry, Ms. McQuinn. I didn't know who he was pointing to. I thought he was pointing to most of us, but okay. Mr. Shaw?
I think at this point, any discussion on the 21-22 calendar is probably a little premature, because I think what we were saying was let staff have an opportunity to go back and deal with this and see what options we have. My frustration in this, and I'll be just as honest as I can ever even think about being, is this was nothing more than responding to special interests, and I do not think that this school board should ever blame staff for doing their jobs. I think we were wrong tonight to blame staff, and I can't say it any other way.
Mr. Shaw, with all due respect, I don't think any of us sit here and blame staff. We were saying that the calendar committee didn't bring us back any alternatives. Nobody blamed these people sitting at the table. All I'm saying is, please go back and figure out a way to make this happen. Nobody blamed them for not being able to do it. So I don't, and this is not special interest. Most of these people were from my district, but we also heard from a lot of people around the county that can't afford to send their kids to camp, but they can't afford to find daycare either for their kids. When we give the kids off days, there's no industry in the entire world that gives off the whole week of Thanksgiving, and those parents have a right to complain, because every time, I heard from lots of them, every time we give a weekday off to the children, the parents have to figure out a way to pay for daycare for those children, and that costs a lot of poor families a lot of money. So it's not just the rich folks from my district, it's parents all over the district. We had hundreds of emails, if I remember correctly, and they came from all over the district, from parents that weren't sending their kids to camp, but parents that couldn't afford to take their kids and put them in a daycare center for the Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving and the Monday, Tuesday of Christmas week and the whole 11 days that we go off during the Christmas holidays, the winter holidays. So, Ms. Brill.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I've said it year after year after year when I moved here from up north. Yes, we started after Labor Day. I've never understood this calendar, but I will tell you, as Mr. Barbieri just said, that when we gave that week off for Thanksgiving, I can't tell you how many families in my community and in my district came to me and said that they were having trouble with the daycare. A lot of people in my district can't afford to go away, and they don't send their kids to camp. But a lot of them are also concerned. A lot of them would like us to start around Labor Day, which we know is never going to happen. But they've complained about the heat. Now, true, we have new buses, so hopefully the air conditioning on the buses will be working. But I personally believe that the 10th is too early. I think that even though this has been a very emotional meeting and it's tiring, if we're ever going to make a change, it's always going to be difficult. We've got to do it. But we have to make a commitment to making a change. Otherwise, we keep doing the same old, same old, same old. So I understand everybody's emotions run deep. I don't want to see anybody's pay being taken away. Certainly my son loses his pay, when we change the calendar. He works in food service, but, you deal with what you have to deal with. And so, I just would hope that whatever discussions we have, staff realize we're not blaming them. It's just, you got to, as we said before, think out of the box. And we do have to consider our constituents. Yes, we're in the business of educating children, but we represent the parents of those children. Thank you.
Ms. Andrews.
Yeah. And I really, as I listen to this and say that we're caving in to special interests, I think that's insulting to me as well as anybody else sitting up here. I've been asking for years to get Veterans Day. That was something I had been pushing. And as I said before, I didn't see why we couldn't do it. We've been talking about the legislature. We have a legislator sitting in here right now. We work with our delegation. I think we can dig a little deeper into that, not just for the 6 paid holidays, but also for those days that are in there that we have to do. We haven't asked as a district. It may be difficult. It may be a heavy lift, but as a school district of Palm Beach County, I know I sit with the Florida School Boards Association and work with a whole lot of people. I've not brought this up as an issue before. I think it was good this time that the board took an issue with the calendar committee and had some ideas to throw forth. Usually we just take it because it's given to us, and we do put our representatives on it. But since we've had some different opinions out here tonight, as well as last month, we got a chance to say some of the things that we wanted to do and how we wanted you to go back and look at it. So I think that legislative piece is still out there. It can be looked at. I would like to call Ron LaFace up in Tallahassee and look at some other districts and just talk about it. I don't know if we've done that. Yes, we have these contracts. I worked here when we were paid just once a month. I remember it all. I remember when we started at a different time. So things can happen. I know that we have our system in place on how we do business now and how we've actually negotiated all these contracts, and we don't want to change. But we've got to look at ourselves a bit once we have some opportunities. And then if we check around, we may find that this may not be as difficult as we think, but I don't know if we've actually explored it to that level. So this conversation has been actually very good, and I'm glad we're going to put this one on hold because I'd like to see some more discussion.
Why don't we just have a motion to table the 2021 calendar, and bring it back after staff considers our comments tonight and sees if they can work something out. The August 2021 start date. August 2020. August 2021, I said. We voted on August 2020. We didn't vote on August 2021.
So we voted on 2021, we did not vote on 21, 22.
Right, he's using the whole thing.
Okay, 21, I'm using the August 21 start date, August of 2021.
Frank, I will motion
many
to
20s
table
here,
that.
so-
21, 22.
Yes, the 21-22 calendar starts August. Motion by second. No discussion on the tabling motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. FMPA 2, Mr. Superintendent.
FMPA 2, I recommend the board approve the additional funds and the ratification of purchases exceeding the previously approved expenditure for bid 17C 80B for speech and language services in the amount of $2 million, not to exceed $8 million annually.
Motion by Mr. Shaw, seconded by Dr. Robinson. Discussion,
pulled
Dr.
it.
Robinson.
So I pulled this because I think I was having a reading moment, right? You had iReady on the agenda, and I had been having all these conversations recently about reading in the community and also with some speech language pathologists. And basically, I'm going to support this, but I just want to say that I really think that we
One after that.
have, if we really invested in people and professional development early on, as I mentioned from Learning While Black, the recommendation from Dr. Janice Hale, if we really invested early in reading, that we would not need to have so many speech language pathology services later on. And so I just want us to try to figure out how to shift our resources, not dropping kids, but to realize that we really, there was a point in time that we really didn't focus on K1, 2. We focused on third grade because it was a tested grade. So now as a system, we understand that we really need to focus earlier, right? And I'm saying I want the resources to be put earlier so that we prevent the need for these kinds of services later. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Superintendent.
FMP F1, I recommend the board receive and accept the monthly purchasing disbursement report as submitted.
Motion by Ms. Wickfield, second by Mrs. McQuinn. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-1 with Dr. Robinson.
L1.
Did she oppose?
She opposed.
She opposed, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Burke, that was for you, Mr. Burke. No, I just want you to know, I pulled your favorite agenda item to vote against it. I just want you to be aware.
You can turn red now, Mr. Burke. L1.
It's late. L1, I recommend the board approve the legislative priorities for Florida School Boards Association.
Motion by Mr. Shaw, seconded by Ms. McQuinn. Mrs.
Whitfield.
been a long week.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment on this. First of all, I love them. I think they're great. The only issue that I wanted to just ask staff to clarify was we wrote seek a full half-day funding for VPK programs, and I feel like we already get a half-day. I feel like what the request was for seek a full-day funding. Anyone? I know y'all are asleep now. Anyway, so I feel like the request should say a full day funding. But I wrote to Early Learning Coalition. They were all excited that we were just supporting them. So I thought we could just have them come back and tell me if that's right or wrong. Do you know what I'm talking about? The last one, funding for voluntary pre-K, seek a full half day. Do you see where it says that?
Correct, yes. I read it earlier.
Full half day is right, or it should be full day?
It should be full day.
Should we say
We're
full
currently
day?
funded for 3.5 hours.
There you go. Okay,
Yes.
so I'd like to just change that little bit and get rid of the half and just make it say full day. That's it.
So we need a motion for that, or is that just an error in the way it was written up?
Mr. Chairman,
Scrivener's error?
do you know if that's an error the way it was written? I think- Do you know?
I'd like to motion it if you want me to. I will
Why don't you
make
do
a
that?
motion that
That's
we
the
take
motion.
out the word half.
Superintendent accepts the amendment. Go ahead, Ms. Whitfield making, Dr. Robinson second. Any discussion? All in favor, all opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Now we're back to the main motion. It's on one full day. Mr. Shaw?
Just one quick thing. What we're approving here with this is only going, these recommendations are simply going to FSBA, to their legislative committee. So they may or may not go anyplace, but they're broad enough that hopefully they'll be accepted.
Ms. Brill?
I know this is going to FSBA, but is there any issue, and then we can amend this, in adding the matter having to do with the paid holidays? I mean, let's start the conversation now. We've spent so many hours here tonight. Let's get it going. I move that we add to the list of legislative priorities. I don't know how to word it. My brain's fried. I'm sorry. I'm still on vacation. Can somebody else please make the motion? Thank you.
Mr. Shaw wants to make the
I
motion.
move that we draft legislative proposal to review the state statute related to paid holidays for employees.
To limitations on paid holidays.
Pardon me?
To limitations on paid holidays, because we're limited to 6, so we want to look at the limitations on them. Is that okay?
Do you have that?
Motion to add draft legislative.
Speak into your
proposal.
microphone. Go ahead.
Motion to add draft legislative proposal to
Address.
address
Number of paid
The
holidays.
state paid holiday statute.
There you go.
And by just leaving it like that, that deals with the issues of how many, but it also deals with all those kind of weird days that Mr. Burke was sharing with us earlier.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to add to that?
Looking at the number of days each semester, I mean, I think that needs to be back up in there too.
Fourth Amendment to the motion.
Not just the paid holidays.
Okay, now we're on the Fourth Amendment to the motion. So why don't I suggest this? Whoever made the motions, let's pull it and get one motion back on the floor. But the okay, that's been withdrawn. With Mrs. Whitfield, we would.
Yeah.
It was Erica. It was Erica.
I remove all motions.
No, we didn't vote on hers because we had an amendment. So they all been withdrawn. So can we make a comprehensive motion that incorporates all of this stuff into one, please? Somebody? Dr. Robinson.
So the motion is to clarify that we're seeking full-day funding for VPK and add an item to address the limitations on paid employee holidays. Did I
And
get it?
Ms. Andrews had some.
And to look at the entire statute, because I think in that statute, it may tell us how many days we have to do each semester. So, I mean, I think that's part of why we're dealing with what we're dealing with right now.
Okay, I'm not, okay. Legal just said something.
No, I think that making it broader than specific
Yeah.
would work.
It's better because
So
we could
I
look at
think
the statute.
what-
I think that's in it.
Your motion, Dr. Robinson, I think covered all that. You're going to look at the whole statute and address the limitations and the types of holidays that are allowable as paid.
Don't talk about something different, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm looking at how many days we have to have in each semester.
Well,
Pardon me?
no,
Which
no,
ma-
no, no.
Okay,
No, don't call it yet.
Yeah, because that's part
To
of the
amend.
problem.
no, at this point, I need Xanax.
Can I make one final?
Ms.
Well,
Brill.
I would just add after, about the VPK, and to add an item to amend the number of paid holidays allowable by the state, as well as the required number of instructional hours per semester.
That's right, that's it.
Okay,
You got
So now-
that, Carol?
That is it.
yes. Okay, we have that substitute motion that's been put forward by Ms. Brill. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Andrews. Any discussion? Better not be. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. That was the amendment.
So I have a comment, please. I'm not going to amend anything, I just.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the one that says adequately fund previous and new unfunded mandates, I want to be crystal clear that is going to include, and for those of you who like to go to Tallahassee, that includes 1003.42, which is the statute that requires infusion of African American, Latino gender studies, and the Holocaust. No, but, okay, so they passed the law, 25 years ago and have never funded it? All right, so I'm just pleased. Thank you.
Okay, so we're voting on the main motion now that's been amended by the amendment. All-
There you go.
It's only one amendment.
that was a substitute motion, so we're done with this one.
Just say, all in favor.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries
Now we got to vote on the whole.
7-0. No, that was a substitute
That was it.
motion. That was the whole thing.
P2,
Thank you.
I recommend the board approve the personnel addendum as submitted.
Motion by Mr. Shaw, second by Dr. Robinson. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion, you opposed, Ms. McQuinn? Oh, your hand went up a little slowly. Okay, it's getting tired. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
PG1, I recommend the board approve the annual updated Florida Educational Equity Act implementation plan.
Motion by Mrs. Andrews, seconded by Ms. Whitfield. Discussion? Dr. Robinson?
I won't belabor it. I sent in additional questions, but I know this is a state-required report, but it continues to show disparities. And so I would hope that we could get some follow-up from staff, maybe in memo form, on what our plans are to address those inequities. Otherwise, we got to take the word equity out of our mission statement.
Okay. Are you okay?
All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. SW2?
SW2, I recommend the board approve a one-year extension to the existing cooperative agreements to provide mental health services to youth K through 12.
Motion by Ms. Whitfield, second by Dr. Robinson. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Whitfield. Mr. Shaw, all in favor? All opposed? 7-0. Meeting's adjourned.
Oh, you're welcome.